see it. So those are the matchups we're going to talk about here. And Brian and I were talking, before the show, and in my head, I'm so big picture right now that coming up with like individual matchups and things like that.
Can't get into the weeds.
Yeah.
Like we're going to have to switch roles. Vince is the head coach now and I'm the coordinator because Vince is like thinking big picture and I'm like, okay, this matchup and this and this.
Yeah,
and this,
right.
This.
Exactly.
So
let's jump into it.
There's definitely some intriguing matchups for this game, Vince. And I think, we'll start with you said we're going to start with the Notre Dame offense, correct?
Let's do it. Yes.
For me, I think the first one for me is Kevin Austin against Jermaine Waller and the other corners. And for me, Kevin Austin at some point in time is going to have to kind of get over the whole up and downness, which I'm not busting his chops for now because, again, yes, he's a senior, but he has not played a lot of football the last 2 years. But you've now got 5 games under your belt. How do you bounce back? He's indicative of this entire team in many ways because he's super talented but didn't show up last week. And now that's 2 of the last 3 games he didn't show up. Now, when he does show up, as he did against Wisconsin, he's really freaking good.
Yeah.
So, he's got to show up. Jermaine Waller is going to be one of the 4 or 5 best corners that Notre Dame's going to play this year. He's going to have to face another good corner this week. And so he's going to have to step up and bring it. So that, to me, is a really intriguing matchup. I want to see Braden Lindsey also against the other corners because when he's matched up against someone not named Jermaine Waller, with all due respect, that's a battle Notre Dame has to win with their receivers. Their other corners are good players, but not to the degree of what I think the Notre Dame players are and should be. And so this is a step up time. Like, look, you guys have the talent, but at what point in time do you stop saying, "Oh, it's coaching, it's this, it's that, it's gut check time," right?
Right.
I mean, it's time to go out there and start making plays. It's no more throwing your hands up when the quarterback doesn't throw you the ball. It's about focusing on you. And the reality is, I think against Dorian Strong and Armani Chapman, I think whether it's Austin or Braden Lindsey, or we're going to see Deion Colsey and Lorenzo Styles this week because Joe Wilkins Jr. is out for the year. They announced today he's out for the year, which means Notre Dame is down to, I think, 6 scholarship wide receivers since 5 transferred since the end of last season. Wow. So they're in a situation.
What was the injury? Because I obviously didn't hear the press conference. Is it
MCL?
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's when he got hit because he didn't come back in after he got injured against.
Did that kind of Yeah.
So he's out for the year. They're down to, but that forces Deion Colsey and Lorenzo Styles on the field. Okay, well, great.
Good. Great. I mean, look, I don't want Notre Dame to be in a position where they've only got 6 scholarship wide receivers.
I definitely don't want Joe Wilkins to be hurt because he's a great kid.
But 100%. But
I get your point.
But I mean, if that's what it takes to get these guys on the field, then okay, because they need to be on the field.
Exactly. And so to me, that perimeter matchup is the biggest one for me because not only is it impactful in the game,
yes,
but it's impactful. It's going to tell me something about what's the character of this receiving core.
Correct.
And that is a question. I don't have any doubt about the talent of this receiving core. None. The things we've seen them do when they're when they're doing what they need to do backs up exactly what we thought about this group. And that is that it's really talented. It's just they lack the coaching, in my opinion. But at the same time, I think sometimes they lack the football character to really be a great unit, other than Avery Davis. So I need to see that. I need to see Braden Lindsey step up and say, hey, all the doubts that people have about me, about maybe I don't love football and all this. I'm gonna show you this weekend, right?
Yeah.
Kevin Austin, look, you're all the talent. You want to go play in the NFL? Hey, you got to show me something this weekend. So I think to me that's the biggest matchup for me. It's hard for me to say any others skill wise. I mean, I think Notre Dame. This is going to be a good matchup. I mean,
yeah, it's funny that you mentioned that because, I told you I was kind of more big picture. Mm-hmm. The first matchup I have is Notre Dame wide receivers versus the secondary because, I mean, you nailed it. You nailed exactly what I was thinking, and I didn't have the specific guy versus guy or anything, but it's time for this Notre Dame wide receiving core to step up. And a bigger piece of that is I need to see them making some catches maybe that they're not supposed to make. Help out their quarterbacks because the quarterbacks have been struggling. We documented it, right? The 3 of them didn't play very well in the last game. I always told my receivers, and I'm sure that you said something along these lines when you were a wide receiver coach, or maybe I'm just nuts. But I would tell my receivers, look, it's our job to make the quarterbacks look good. Like, you got to catch if you have any option of catching, you have to catch the football. We need to make the quarterback look good. That's our job. And I don't know that they're doing a great job of that right now.
Right.
You know what I mean? They
not
right
enough.
There.
Yeah,
Wide receivers are lacking consistency. I completely agree with that, Ethan. And that's where I need to see them take another step, right? As a group, they need to take that other step because, look, Avery Davis is doing a pretty darn good job. He's catching pretty much everything that comes his way. So but he's part of the group. So I'm lumping him in there with everybody else.
He's the leader. He is. He's the fifth-year senior. He's the captain. He's got to be the one to get in Brady Lindsey's face and say, knock that freaking crap off.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? When you're dropping 39-yard touchdowns, you're not allowed to show up to quarterback, okay? When you're getting hit right in the hands when you're smoking dudes, you're not allowed to show up to quarterback, okay?
Right.
You stop that nonsense and go play ball, right?
Yeah,
that's what a leader is supposed to do.
And that's what we need.
And this is where I think Jack Cohn's personality has hurt this team a little bit. And it's not a knock on Jack Cohn.
It's just not who he is.
Because the coaches should be the ones dealing with this, but they're not. Is the first time that Braden Lindsey shows me up for me not throwing him the ball, me and him are going to have a little come to Jesus moment when we come on the sidelines the next time off the field. Hey, you ever show me up like that again, I'm going to have a hard time reading to your side of the field. I'm just telling you right now.
Right.
I'm going to really feel good about my matchups with Michael Mayer and Kevin Austin. Now, you're not really going to do that, but you're going to tell him
No, but it's just funny the way you
said
it is all.
But we don't have that. We haven't seen that kind of personality on offense yet at quarterback or receiver. And that kind of goes back to our original conversation of we need some leadership on this football team.
Right. Yep.
The next matchup for me is the offensive tackles against Amari Barno. This kid is a really good football player, and he's so raw, but he's really twitchy and athletic.
He's just long and athletic is the thing with him, and that's where Notre Dame's tackles could be in trouble. And I think this is a really good matchup as well.
Well, because they haven't required that offensive, the offensive tackles haven't required the defensive ends be necessarily overly fundamentally sound or overly anything. I mean, they're just getting beat with simple moves. I mean, just simple speed moves or simple inside moves, or it doesn't take a whole lot to really beat this offensive line, if we're going to be honest with you. And so they're going to need to be on top of their game because this is a kid that can wreck a game. I mean, he is, and he's still a developing football player. Vince, he had a couple sacks against North Carolina, and he had some moments last year where he was able to take over a game, and he's a talented pass rusher and a guy that I'm concerned about when I look at this matchup of the Notre Dame offensive line against the Virginia Tech front, because Virginia Tech doesn't have a super talented defensive line. Like there's other than Barno, who's still an emerging player, he still has a long way to go. But he's a guy that, to me, he's got some tools. The rest of those guys, to me, are not elite players, but they're really good, fundamentally sound, tough, get after it, know how to play the game kind of guys, and that's what makes them effective and makes them dangerous. So, I think those are things that concern me about that matchup, because if they can't protect the quarterback, I don't care who you put in at quarterback. They need to give him time. On the flip side of this is, if they're able to give Jack Cohn time, if whether it's Joe Alt or Tosh Baker or Michael Carmody or Josh Slugg, whoever's playing tackle, and we have no clue who that's going to be, if you can give Jack Cohn time to throw the ball, you are going to be able to be successful against Virginia Tech's defense, because I do think Notre Dame has some matchup advantages that they can take advantage of. I don't think that Virginia Tech they're a good front seven, but you can run on them. You can gash them. I don't think you can consistently, to me, they're too well coached. They're too good to just consistently move off the ball and push off the ball. But, the way they play, you can open up some creases as this big play. So I think that the flip side is that if you can protect the quarterback, there are some advantages. And then that kind of ties into my second matchup. My second matchup of this game is about Jarrett Patterson against the nose tackle, Jordan. There's two of them that I really like. Jordan Williams and Narelle Pollard. Narelle Pollard was a really good football player for Virginia Tech last year. I like him quite a bit. He's a guy that I considered for, being an all-opponent team when I did my all-opponent team breakdown this year. He was a guy that I had in that conversation, because I thought last year he's a really good football player. And he's a short kid. He's not real big. He's listed at 6'2", 280, but he's real quick, plays with great leverage. I love how he plays the game. And he's a guy that can come out and give you some problems. And so Jarrett Patterson's going to have to be on top of his game this week. You need your All-American. You need your captain to play well. And that's that's going to be one of the keys. And we have several super chats about the offensive line too. So we'll just go ahead and get those out there. Garth Cassidy, thank you for super chat. Could all of the offensive players sign a petition to get rid of Jeff Quinn as the offensive line coach and take it to Jack Swarbrick? O-line is depressing. I would hope the players would never do that. There's a right way and a wrong way to deal with that, and that's not the right way to deal with that, in my opinion. But yeah, I think they can make it known, and we've seen past Notre Dame lines make it known. The Notre Dame players after 2018 went to Coach Kelly and asked him to bring in Chris Watt. He relented the first year, but then they did it again the next year, and he finally gave in and brought in Chris Watt, and that paid huge dividends for them. And so I mean, something like that would be more advantageous than a petition to get rid of him. I would never want to see players doing that unless it was an ethical thing, like it was with Brian Van Gorder. Jacob Dunn said, will the offensive line give up more than 10 sacks plus false starts combined on Saturday night? I mean, that's kind of partly why we're talking about this matchup, Jacob, is because they need to play better. If the answer to that is yes or anything close to yes, then it's going to be a long night. It's going to be a very long night. And that's kind of the concern that I have. And that's why really, I mean, I talked about Austin and Lindsey, but other than that, I mean, my two next matchups are the offensive tackles and Jarrett Patterson. They're going to have to play well. And until they do, this team is going to continue to struggle to score points. So that's my matchups. It's the tackles against Amari Barno, and then it's Jarrett Patterson against Jordan Williams and Narelle Pollard. So those are my offensive matchups that I'm most concerned about. Before we dive into the defensive one, I did want to get this super chat from Lawrence Adams. Lawrence had a bad feeling last week. Same feeling this week. Haven't played 4 good quarters in a row yet. Unfortunately, I think 19-13 Virginia Tech wins. God, I hope I'm wrong. I hope you're wrong too, because that is not going to be a fun situation to watch this team drop a couple in a row and then have to sit on that for 2 weeks. So, Vince, did you get booted out of your classroom? Because you got a little different backup there.
I sure did. So, somebody came in, they're like, we're using this room. Okay. So I got outranked, outmaneuvered, and outflanked. So, but I figured it out. So I'm back.
This is a bad sign because Vince is clearly not, the preparation for Vince isn't there today. His execution is, but he bounced back. He's battling through adversity, and that's the key. That's the key, right? There's
leadership involved here. So I'm here.
Defensive matchups, I think it's going to be very similar to the first one when we start. It's whoever's matched up against Tre Turner and primarily Clarence Lewis. Look, Clarence had a solid start to the season. I thought the corners played really well the first few games. Wisconsin started to pick on him a little bit as they noticed him being in the boundary, which is, again, the sort of the one-on-one position.
Right.
Team started to go at him more. And Wisconsin had success. They had some catches on him, beat him for a touchdown, beat him for a 22-yard gain on the first or second play of the game. And then they beat him again in the second quarter, but the ball was overthrown. I mean, he was beat by several steps on that play. And so, to me, Virginia Tech is going to say, hey, we're going to get our receivers matched up against Clarence Lewis. And the one that really concerns me is Tre Turner. Now, obviously, Caleb Smith is going to be concerning. Caleb's a big-bodied kid, 6'2", 215, very similar to Alec Pierce from Cincinnati, who obviously gave Clarence Lewis a lot of problems this past weekend, really torched Notre Dame. But Tre Turner's the one. Tre Turner's the – look, here's the deal. I got a ton of respect for what Virginia Tech does on defense. They're a really good defense. In my opinion, this is the best defense Notre Dame's going to face from here to the end of the season. And I think when it's all said and done, they're going to be arguably the second best defense Notre Dame is going to play all season, with Cincinnati having been the best so far. Wisconsin's in that conversation as well, but there's not a lot of good defenses on the schedule. This is one of them. This is a really good defense. The offense is not good. It hasn't been good. They're averaging 23 points a game. They make Notre Dame's offense look explosive.
You're right.
I mean, because look, they scored 20 points against Richmond. They lost 27-21 to West Virginia, who I believe is I mean, what are they, 3-2, 2-3? I can't remember what they did this past weekend, but they scored 7. I mean, they beat North Carolina, but they scored 17 points, and then they scored 35 points on Middle Tennessee. And Middle Tennessee isn't exactly a juggernaut of a football team. So, their offense is not good, but There's always the but when it comes to football, and that's what I love about it.
Well, yeah.
It's, do you have that individual that if you don't have a proper plan for him or you don't execute against him, you could be in trouble. And to me, that player is Tre Turner for this offense.
No question.
They have to keep him from taking this game over. And just because here's the concern is he going to catch 17 balls? No, I'm not talking about like that kind of thing. But what he can do is he can hit 3 30, 40-yard bombs that completely flip the field and give a mediocre offense short
right.
cheap scores or short fields to work on. That is how they can then make plays. And that, to me, is my concern. That is where I get real nervous about this. Because when Tre Turner's good, this offense is pretty good. And at least it is in the pass game. And so that's really, when I look at this, Vince, that's my real big concern about this.
Well, that's the first one I had written down, too. I mean, I had Tre Turner versus whoever is guarding him is what I wrote down. Mm-hmm. And you're right. It's probably going to be Clarence Lewis, and Virginia Tech's going to do what they need to do to make sure that that's the case, because Clarence Lewis has shown, at least the last few weeks, that he's the weak link in the secondary. Yeah. I mean, it just –
By the way, West Virginia's 2-3.
Yeah.
They've lost to Oklahoma and Texas Tech. They lost to Texas Tech at home this weekend.
Right.
So –
yeah, Tre Turner can cover up warts on your offense. And that's I think what you were getting at, is that if he's getting loose and now and if he's getting loose in the way that Freeman has already designed his defense, right? And so now he has to adjust to take care of Tre Turner. Well, now other parts of the offense can then kind of take advantage of that. A mediocre run game can then start to take off maybe just a little bit, or maybe Burmeister starts getting out of the pocket because there's not as much of a rush. They're not devoting as many guys to keeping him, contained. And so now he gets a little bit loose, right? Or now that you're devoting more energy to covering Tre Turner, well, now somebody else is one-on-one and maybe they get loose, right? So he's kind of the caveat to what this offense is. And that's what worries me, because he is that good.
Right.
And so Notre Dame's going to have to do, they're going to have to prevent Clarence Lewis from being matched up with him one-on-one all the time.
Right. That's going to be a Marcus Freeman thing. He's
absolutely.
So in my Time to Shine article, the first two guys I mentioned was Clarence Lewis, number 1, and Houston Griffith, number 2. Because as you saw last week, Vince, Houston did not do a good job of getting off the hash last week.
Right.
He was often late to get off the hash. Part of that was because they were also attacking the seams really effectively, and so I think part of that was good scheme by Mike Denbrock. Shocker, Mike Denbrock, had a well-coached game plan. No one should be surprised by that. My respect for Mike Denbrock. But that's the thing is Houston has to do a better job in that, which then leads me into my second matchup, which is J.D. Bertrand against whoever the tight ends and running backs that they're in slots they're going to throw at him. Look, here's what coaches do. You know who you are. You're going to run what you do, but you're going to watch previous games, and you're going to say, okay, these teams are picking on 6, and they're having success. Man, 27, the first couple games you watch, boy, this 27 kid is a monster against the run. Boy, he's just coming down. He's around the ball.
Yeah.
So what did Cincinnati do? Okay, fine. We're not going to let this guy blow us up in a run game, so we're going to make him cover. And that's what they did. They ran seams at him, drags at him. They were able to beat him down the field and get him out of his game. Well, Virginia Tech coach would say, hey, how can we do that within the framework of our offense? And that's what they're going to do. They're going to put slots into the boundary and force him to step out of the box. They're going to put tight ends there. They're going to have running backs running routes against him. JD against whoever he's matched up against is another one, because I think JD's been really good up until this point in time the season. But for me, Vince, I need to see him bounce back. And again, this is his first adversity he's faced as a starter. How does he bounce back? I think he's going to bounce back well, but we need to see it. Right. He's got to show it.
He does.
So for me, that's my next matchup.
Well, that makes a lot of sense, because look, JD didn't have a great game in pass coverage. He still did what he needed to do in the run game, but his pass coverage left a lot to be desired. It was the first time I was watching film back on Sunday, and I was like, "Woo, JD, what was that?" Like, I had negative things written down about JD Bertrand, right? And it was consistent in the pass game.
Done this year. I mean, he's
not at all. Really good this year. Not at all. And so you're right. Again, is it an isolated situation where he just had a bad game because he was peeking in the backfield, et cetera? Or Is that kind of a glimpse into what things are going to be like? I personally think it's an aberration. I don't think that's going to be J.D. Bertrand. I think he's too good of a player for that, and I think he's too he works too hard in the film room and things of that nature for that to be who he is. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how he bounces back, because my confidence level in him bouncing back is pretty high. And if he doesn't, that will shock me. I mean, to be honest with you, that will really shock me if he doesn't bounce back in this game.
And the last one is kind of what it's going to be every week. It's going to be the ends versus the tackles. Myron and Foskey and Batelho. And look, that last touchdown drive, they didn't have Adamiola on the field, who I think was banged up at the time. They didn't have Foskey on the field. And guess what? Cincinnati goes down the field and scores.
Yeah.
Right? And so you're going to need Foskey to be good. You're going to need Myron to be good, because they need to make sure Virginia Tech can't run. They haven't been a good running team, and you can't let a team that hasn't been good run the ball on you. You have to shut it down.
Yep.
And that's going to be about the ends really coming down, being physical, just tightening up the boxes, tightening up the run lanes, with setting the edge effectively. And then, of course, I got to get after the quarterback. Braxton Burmeister's not a great quarterback. He's kind of mediocre as a passer.
Mm-hmm.
If you harass him consistently, he will make mistakes.
Yes.
And so the ends need to be able to come off the ball and be disruptive. I mean, we don't need to dive into it. It's what we always talk about. It's another matchup that I'm looking forward to watching this weekend, and it's important.
Love that.